Hello, everyone. This is the Crimson Cure, welcoming you to the Crimson Tower, a place where we keep a feminine foot on the neck of the gynocracy, feminism, and black male misandry. So go ahead, pull up a chair, stay a while, and listen. Hey, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel. We're going to go ahead and get right on into the topic, but first, a word from our sponsor.
This is A-Game, fast-acting, long-lasting, with no side effects.
Hey you guys, and welcome to the Crimson Cure channel. This is your host, the Crimson Cure, and as usual, we're just going to jump right into this. Let me go ahead and get this article up because I'm going to share and read an article to you guys. Okay. All right, so I got that up. But before we go ahead and read this article, I just kind of want to give you guys a little bit of heads up because this is just sort of a quick hit. Just an FYI, just to see this, the gynocracy says the darndest things, we've got a problem with the gynocracy above and beyond what they are. I'm bothered by a lot of what they do in terms of things like this. Revisionist history according to whims and emotions. They like to redefine words. They like to redefine long-held concepts. And everybody's just kind of got to go along with it. They redefine words according to how they feel. And also, they will redefine concepts such as the video that I did previously about obesity now being the new healthy. And so everyone has to sort of just go along with those different little narratives, whatever the gynocracy decides that they're going to do or going to say next. And everybody just has to put up with it and deal with it and act like it's all a good idea and all of it is for the best for everyone and it has to go unchecked and unchallenged, etc., etc. You understand what I'm saying. So we're going to go ahead and get into this article. I just want to read you this article, just so you know. And this is on thefederalist.com. All right, so the 1619 Project founder melts down after criticism of her fake history. Now, for those of you who don't understand what the 1619 Project is, it is a project that was backed by the New York Times, and it's like an interactive project, and the point of it was to see or sort of challenge the notion that America's began as a country on its date of independence, which is 1776, and saying that really the establishment of the country happened when they actively entered into the transatlantic slave trade. So that's basically the revisionist history part of it. You'll find out later what's really at the core of it as I read the article. So it says the lead writer of the New York Times anti-American 1619 Project suffered a meltdown last week when a colleague at her paper offered fair criticism of its revisionist and inaccurate account of history. On October the 9th, New York Times columnist Bret Stephens published a more than 3,000-word essay outlining the project's blunders that have led the academics with the National Association of Scholars to call on the Pulitzer Prize Board to revoke its award to the project's chief essayist, Nikole Hannah-Jones. Journalists are most often in the business of writing the first rough draft of history, not trying to have the last word on it, Stephens wrote. We are best when we try to tell truths with a lowercase t, following evidence in directions unseen, not the capital T truth of a pre-established narrative in which inconvenient facts get discarded. And we're supposed to report and comment on the political issues of the day, not become the issue itself. Under this model, Stephen writes, for all of its virtues, buzz, spin-offs, and a Pulitzer Prize, the 1619 Project has failed. At the heart of his criticism is the project's central thesis to revise the date of America's true founding to the year 1619, when the first African slaves found their way to the colonies. Native American tribes had kept slaves on the continent for centuries by then, which that little insert doesn't, I don't like those little inserts to try to justification somebody else was doing it before. Who cares? You know what I mean? Several months after the campaign's launch, now that it is infecting some 4,500 K-12 classrooms, the legacy newspaper stealth edited the project to remove the language of its true founding to when the moment America began. These were not minor points, Stephen wrote. The deleted assertions went to the core of the project's most controversial goal, to reframe American history by considering what it would mean to regard 1619 as our nation's birth year. The criticism sent the architect of the project into a rage, according to the Washington Post, predictably calling the fair-minded critiques of her deceptive scholarship racist. Hannah Jones, though, was livid and let Kingsbury and Stevens know it in emails ahead of publication, the Post reported. On the day the NAS called for the revocation of her Pulitzer, she tweeted that efforts to discredit her work, quote, put me in a long tradition of Black women who fail to know their places, unquote. She changed her Twitter bio to slanderous and nasty-minded mulattress, a tribute to the trailblazing journalist Ida B. Wells, whom the Times slurred with those same words in 1894. The Revisionist project, which has attracted sharp scrutiny, what's with this ad? Sharp scrutiny since its publication last year, has since maintained full editorial support from the newspaper despite major corrections to its essays and leagues of historians debunking its primary claims. After a group of leading historians objected to the Times project's false information, the magazine's editor-in-chief, Jake Silverstein, wrote back that, quote, historical understanding is not fixed, unquote. In other words, the Times doesn't care what historians with decades of experience think if it counters the religious narrative that critical race theory demands. Several months later, the Times finally did issue a 2-word correction to its lead essay authored by none other than Hannah Jones, clarifying that keeping slavery was only a primary motivation for some of the colonists rather than all of the colonists to seek independence from Great Britain. While it might seem a minor change, it's actually a significant one, provided that the project has been adopted widely into curriculum teaching children the United States was built for the sole purpose to oppress, a key tenet of the left's crucial race theory driving the nation's 21st century woke revolution. It's worth noting this correction was made before the Pulitzer Committee awarded Hannah Jones its prestigious prize based on an essay that the Times admitted was historically inaccurate. Despite the corrections, the inaccuracies, the controversies, and the criticisms of the project, Dean Baquet, the executive director of the Times, rejected Stevens' arguments. Our readers and I believe our country have benefited immensely from the principles, rigorous, and groundbreaking journalism of Nicole, Baquet wrote, celebrating the work of the same writer who said it would be an honor for the nation's explosion of deadly unrest, which tore through the cities this summer, to be named the 1619 riots. Now, what I want you guys to actually do is ignore the fact that that was the Federalists. So you can understand some of the undertones and some of the language that was actually in that I actually disagree with. But what I wanted to do was focus on the gynocracy. How is it the gynocracy? Because we have a gynocrat, the Nicole Hannah Jones lady, in an attempt to revise history, all right? The United States wanted independence away from Great Britain and its monarchy rule. Long story short, are there other nuances? Yes. Were there other benefits to getting that independence outside of just not being ruled by a monarchy that's across the sea and doesn't know what's going on in another country really on the ground? Plenty of subtext. Of course, there were more than that benefit. Of course, the American Revolution was not simply fought for that reason. But we're not here to deal with all of the subtext of why the American Revolution happened and what happened after and who benefited and who did not, okay? What I want to talk about is the revisionist history part of that. Here you have a project that is attempting to assert that the country's founding date not be 1776, but instead be 1619, because that is when America actively engaged itself in the transatlantic slave trade. Now, I'm going to speak about the slave trade from a more pragmatic view and not from its moral point of view. because morally we understand it to be oppression, and oppression is wrong. When you engage in the bartering of human lives and then treating those humans as subhuman and treating them as livestock and animals or worse, then of course you have overstepped a bound of humanity, and you have created a situation that breaks people, and in so many ways, and for so many reasons. That's wrong. However, if you talk about it from a pragmatic standpoint, many of those countries, and there are even cultures now that thrive on slave labor. Okay, their whole economy is based on slave labor. They now call it a caste system, where the lowest caste is a caste of servitude, and let's just call a thing, they're slaves. All right. During or before the transatlantic slave trade was the Eastern slave trade, okay, where Africans were sold to what is now known as the Middle East, and also the Far East and Southeast Asia. All right. So slavery has been going on since ancient times. All right. Usually a group of people are conquered and then forced into some type of servitude, thereby to stay in that state of servitude, probably in perpetuity, unless and until that group of people rebel or something happens that releases them from that state. All right. So then we had, for modern history, the transatlantic slave trade, which was really different from other types of slavery. Not to say other types were good. However, the type that our ancestors endured was really a different kind, and it had a different effect. However, I'm not going to go into that. What I wanted to point out was a revisionist history. They're always trying to redefine something, history happened the way that it happened, and no one can change the way history happens. Although people can try to change how it is told and how it is referred to and how it is framed. All right. People try to do that all the time. And anybody who engages in revisionist history usually are trying to take some historical event or whatever to fit into some sort of narrative that is already existing, or to frame it in a way that goes along with their ideologies and things of that nature. So but revisionist history is dangerous because it reteaches history in a way that is patently untrue, a way that it can be debunked and say, okay, no, that's not how it happened. Now, you may have your own, reservations or thoughts on what really happened, because really when we talk about history and historical events, you kind of almost got to just trust who ends up telling that story. And there's an old saying that history is written or told by the winners. All right. Because they survive. So they get to tell the story from their point of view. So you kind of have to get different pieces from here and there to sort of put a whole picture together that gives you more rounded viewpoint, more rounded idea of a historical event or time period. All right. But the gynocracy says the darndest things. All right. Obese is healthy. America was founded when slaves came here. And a myriad of other things. We redefined gender and redefined gender roles, redefine what's acceptable in society and what's not. And no one is supposed to say anything. No one is supposed to challenge it. No one is supposed to deal with it at all. All right. And a lot of the gynocracy hides behind pro-Blackness in order to justify it, because this is what the 1619 Project has done. It has hidden behind pro-Blackness to have a moral high ground, where we can say that the country was really founded when slaves got here, because we understand that slave labor was key to building the economy that the country thrived on. They could not have survived without slave labor. All right. They could not have done that. All right. But that's the case with most societies, especially when we talk historically, going all the way back to ancient history. All right. A lot of, or the majority of countries and civilizations had a slave class. They had that. And their economy was built on it. Even Islamically, in the Arabian Peninsula, prior to Islam, slavery was rampant. It was just the thing. It was just the thing to do. But Arabians also didn't have a central government. They were tribal, all right? So they had factions in different places, different tribes, right? At the inception of the prophet, peace be upon him, came, it actually took 23 years. His prophethood lasted 23 years. During that time, slavery was slowly abolished, okay? And the reason why it was slowly abolished rather than abolished outright was to allow the economy, the economic structure to not crumble by taking slavery away in one go. So eventually what began to happen was, treat your slave better, right? That was the first step. Don't treat them subhuman. Treat them like you. And then it was like, treat them better, and then treat them like your family. And then let them marry into your family. And so gradually, it actually raised the status of the so-called slave to equal the status of the masters. Actually, that's how Islam gave slaves equality. Once you don't dehumanize another person, you can't enslave them. And then it allowed trade and other types of trade in order to supplement the economy that is lost when you take away slave labor. And one of the main ways it did that was make slavery immoral. It made it immoral in the minds of those who had long held slaves. So it changed in here. I can't enslave a person that I think of as a person. All right. And I have to think of them as equals. And then coupled with the fact that Islam itself was not limited to a particular class. Anybody could be Muslim. So you had to treat your Muslim brother and sister a certain way. You couldn't treat them subhumanly. You have to treat them like your brother and sister. So it raises the status. But anyway, that was a quick Islamic lesson for you guys, just so you understand that I am aware of slave trades that happen all across the globe. Okay, there's always been slavery. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and sign out of here. But before I do, I want everyone to go into the description box and hit the link for A Game at agameherbal.com, which is a male health herbal solution. All right. So this is specifically for the guys. So guys, I want you to hit the link again at agameherbal.com. Get your 10% discount using the code Kendra10 and give yourself the gift of better health. And ladies, also, you can purchase it as well for the men in your life and give them that same gift also. So with that being said, peace out. Hey guys, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. And if you've got more to say on the topic, leave a comment down below. Also, don't forget to support our sponsor who so graciously supports this channel by clicking the description box and the link for A Game at agameherbal.com. You can go ahead and get a 10% discount off of your next purchase using the code Kendra10. This has been yet another Crimson Cure production, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.